that better? Can you hear me? Were you not hearing me before? Anyways, so we're talking about 412 Randolph Street, and so I closed on this up North Michigan last year in August 15th to be exact, and we got this deal. We acquired this deal from a Google PPC campaign that we were running, right? And so we got the lead months before, and it was a little bit of an older couple. They were just looking to move. I went and had conversations with them multiple times about, hey, why not just list this house? I can get you much more for, versus an offer from me than, if we list it. And so we had conversations about it. She wasn't interested. She just wanted to get out. And so initially we came to the agreement of 170. Now this is a 2-2 in Newport Richey, 1,150 square feet, very small house, 2-car garage attached, a little bit of an older neighborhood, Mill Pond Estates. And I'm not going to go into too many of the details. Like really, this is more for deal analysis, right? And how it worked. Ultimately, so you can arm yourself if you're not flipping real estate already, how this works with using hard money. And so I had a couple of meetings with her, and she's just like, I just want out. I'm ready to go. I don't care. And so we talked about a price of 170. She said, okay, that will give us 15 or 20 grand to go with. And she was fine with it. And I said, okay. So we had a little bit more conversations. I went out there, put eyes on the property. And after that, we ended up settling on 166.5. And she was more than happy. She was just ready to go. We struck that deal probably in May of last year, May or June, and we didn't close to August. She wanted a couple of months to get things in order. I said, no problem. And so that's essentially how we got the deal, through a Google PPC campaign. So we're running ads on PPC, We Buy Houses. It was driving traffic to just a landing page, one form, one page landing page. We buy houses as is, cash, yada yada, no repairs, no inspections, all that good stuff. And so she filled out the information, called her right away, obviously called these right away. And that's how we got the deal. At that moment, we were probably spending about $3,000, $3,500 a month in Google ads. And so that's how we got that deal. We also got another deal that we're actually putting on the market today from that campaign, about 8 months ago. So that campaign was good. And unfortunately we did turn it off for a little bit, but getting back to the point where we're going to crank it back up. But anyway, so let's dive into this. So that's how we got the deal. The negotiation was pretty easy. We contracted at 166.5. Like I said, we renegotiated. I was at 170. Now, what we did then was, once we're under contract with hard money, we do an as-is appraisal and an after-repair value appraisal, right? And so that costed $725. And what I want to show you is, at that time, here's the property before renovation. At that time, the value came in at $320,000 after repair. With that appraisal, you have to submit the scope of work. What are we going to do? So we had to create the scope, submit the scope. The scope was about $50,000 worth of work. Pretty much everything being done except for HVAC. HVAC was only 3.5 years old at that point. So we really had to do everything. But again, 1,150 square feet. So it wasn't a huge property, but everything had to be redone. Flooring, and I'm not going to go through all of that, the scope, but we definitely renovated 90 to 95% of that property. The only other thing that we didn't do was the kitchen cabinets. We just refaced them and sprayed the boxes. We didn't redo them. But other than that, everything was brand new. So, it was about a $50,000. And when we get into the numbers, you'll see that it was a little bit more. We ended up going a little bit over budget. But this is the appraisal, and this essentially tells the lender, like, hey, because even though we're hard money and there's no appraisal contingency on the deal, we still have to provide value. Oh, good, you can hear now. Perfect. Sorry. So we have to provide value. The lender needs to see value, right? And so the appraisal was $720. It came in at $320. We had it at $166. We had a $50,000 construction holdback for renovation. And so the numbers worked out. They weren't great, but the numbers worked out for this deal, right? And so what we did was we used a hard money loan on this. So an 85-100. So the hard money lender paid for 85% of the acquisition. So we had to put a 15% down payment, and they paid 100% of the renovation. So our down payment into this deal was $25,000 roughly. Okay, we're gonna get more into those numbers. And it was 10.25% interest only, right? The loan term was for a year. Luckily, we were out in about 6 months, which was what we projected. But let's talk about the cash to close. So when, before we started renovating properties, you just never knew, like, what does it take? What amount of money does it take to really renovate a property? And so what I wanted to do today, obviously provide as much value as possible, right? So this is our settlement statement for when we closed. 14th. I thought it was the 15th. So August 14th, we closed. Again, I was up North Michigan when I closed on this, which was fantastic. Mobile notary came to me. And so, like I said, 166.5 was the purchase price. I only put $1,000 in escrow. When you're working, and you probably know this, but when you're working direct to seller, you get a lot more flexibility. Whenever there's an agent involved or, an attorney involved, there's a little bit more hurdles there and obstacles. But when you're direct to seller, you can, I don't want to say get away with things, but things are a little bit easier to get the deal done. So I only had $1,000 in escrow, and then here's all these fees, right? So this hard money loan, there was attorneys involved to create things, and we'll get more into the final numbers where it will help you when you're underwriting deals. But we had a $50,000 construction holdback here. Here's all the settlement fees that went into it, etc. I'm not going to go through all of them. We had a $725 appraisal outside of closing. So our cash to close was $42,471 with our $1,000 escrow. So technically $43,000. So on a $166,000 property, we had to put 15% into the deal, so 25, and then the additional was 3 points, right? We had 3 points on that loan, and then the closing costs. So the total cash to close was $43,000. So if you're looking at flipping property, you have to have some capital, or if you have awesome people in your life, like attorneys or doctors or people who wouldn't mind putting up the acquisition costs. We do this a lot. And so with that said, if you're ever going to try to structure something like that, if you can get private money for the acquisition costs, a lot of times what we'll see 5 points up front and like 15%, but 5 points on 50 grand is only $2,500, so it's not a crazy amount of money. And then 15%, you pay them monthly, and then they get their 50 grand back at closing, right? So it's a really creative way for you to be able to do as many deals as you possibly can if you can find private money lenders to help you with that acquisition cost. And it makes it work. They make more money, and maybe not 15%, maybe 12 to 15%, but they make more money doing that than sitting in the stock market. Or it's just more diversification for high net worth individuals that need to park money here and there. So that's what it cost us to close the deal. But it's not the only amount of money that we needed, right? So when you're doing a hard money loan and you have a construction holdback, you have to be able to pay for the things to be done, the material and labor for things to be done, to be able to draw against that money, to be able to pull that money out. The work has to be done before you get reimbursed for that work. And so it's really important that you have to that you have, and the lender will want to see it, that you have more reserves than just this to be able to fund the rehab before you get reimbursed for it. Okay. So let's break that down a little bit deeper. So our planned budget, we'll just dive into the renovation a little bit. The planned budget, we had 50,000. Our timeline was 2 months. That being said, and I'm going to jump down a little bit more, but that being said, we almost hit 2 months right on the date to list, which was fantastic. Right. So that was our planned budget, 50 grand, 2 months. How the renovation worked. So like I said, ours, essentially, we have crews that do the labor, and we buy the materials. We do that for a couple of different reasons. One, there's no markup on materials, which is huge. Two, you can control costs a little bit better, and also we get to accumulate the points, essentially, right? So what we do is typically most of our materials will come from Home Depot. We'll have a Home Depot Pro account. And through there, I can go into the app. I can pull this up and show you. Like, you can go through and build out everything that you need to buy and pretty much have it delivered to the job site for free, which was fantastic. We also have a rep. Well, I have a rep there. And so I can actually take my materials list, send it to him, and he can actually give me better prices. His name's Kenny. If you ever see this, Kenny, shout out to you. Appreciate everything you do for us. But that's how it works. So we build out all the materials lists, we get it ordered, we get it delivered, and then we talk to our contractors and we negotiate a labor price. And so we walk the property, we go through everything, what's going to be done, we go through the scope of work, and then we come up with a labor price. And we have a contract with the contractor stating exactly what they're going to do, what their timeline is, how much what is it going to cost. Through that process, they're gonna essentially take weekly draws. So for this example, I think it was 20 to 25 grand for the labor. And we broke that up over the course of 5 or 6 weeks or whatever it was. We paid them per week as work was completed, right? So they had to prove to us that the work was completed also. And so while we had to, purchase all of the materials up front, right? So we purchase the materials, everything starts getting delivered, labor starts happening. But like the roof was separate. We did the roof. Our contractor didn't do that. We hired a roofing company to do that. Actually, McDonald Roofing from Newport Richey, they did a fantastic job. So if you ever need a good roof from them, they did a great job. Certified Roofers is also another fantastic roofing company in the Valrico area. But we had them out, they did the roof, and then I was able to submit for a draw, right? So I want to talk about, this was, when I first learned about this back in the day, taking draws was shocking to me. I guess I didn't understand how it worked. And so what you have to do is your lender would give you an app, right? And this one was called True Vision. And you have to go to the property and you have to shoot pictures. So they geolocate you in the app to make sure you're at the property. And then you have to take all the pictures of the entire exterior of the street, inside, so all the very first pictures showing what the property looks like. Then when you're ready to go take a draw, you have to go back and then start proving that the work was done, right? So the roof, I did get pictures of the roof, the flooring, extra, this and that. And one thing that I didn't realize when we first started doing this, a while ago, was every time you do a draw, there's a fee involved. So it's $300 every time you take a draw. So really, you don't want to just run out there and hit a draw every time you can to get reimbursed. You really want to try to lump things together as best as you can to take a draw for a large amount. And I think with this property, I ended up getting it to about, I think it was 4 or 5 draws, because I'm just trying to lump things together so you don't keep getting hit with that $300 fee. And every lender is going to be different. That was just for this lender. So that's how kind of the renovation worked, right? So we negotiated the labor price with our contractor. We ordered most of the materials, like 90 to 95% of materials, through Home Depot. Some of the stuff we didn't get through, obviously, the Home Depot doesn't sell. Then we got other places, or if we had it cheaper, like for example, baseboards. We use a different company in Tampa for baseboards. It was a fraction of the cost than it was from Home Depot. So you kind of start learning things like that, of where you're going to save some money on materials with different suppliers. But that's how really the renovation worked. So we had to, it took us 2 months to get on the market. I think our renovation was done in about 6 weeks. From there, we had to get pictures, we had to get it cleaned, all that stuff that had to happen after construction. But any questions on renovation, how that works? And so I already talked about this, drawing against the construction holdback. It's very calculated, and sometimes if you don't provide right pictures, like the challenge I had with this property was, it was, over an hour from my house. And so it wasn't easy for me just to pop over there and, jump in the app and submit this draw. So one time I remember I submitted a draw, and like they came back and like, oh, the pictures aren't good enough. I don't, we need more pictures. So I had to drive back out there to get the pictures, because it doesn't get approved right away, right? So you submit the pictures, and then it goes into the review process, and then you can jump on your app and see it's in the review process, but they might not approve it until the next day or something like that. And then once they approve it, they essentially just wire you the funds. So they're going to hit you with the $300 draw fee, and then if your bank charges you a wire fee, you're going to get hit with that too. So like mine does. Mine, it's like $15 every time I have an incoming wire. Fifth Third business, be better. Just be better. All right. So tracking everything. This is really important. You don't know where you're at if you're not tracking everything. So during this whole renovation process, which we plan on being about 50 grand, you have to track everything you don't know. So we have this spreadsheet. if you're on my team, you can absolutely have access to this. Again, InvestCore Realty. But so you have to track everything to know where you're at, because especially when you're going to list the property, if you stayed under budget, that's fantastic. You might even be able to be a little bit more aggressive on the price to give, to be able to move it faster. And so this spreadsheet tracks everything. Here's the draws. So we had 4 draws. Each one, we got hit with $300. So like I said, we had 50 grand. Let's see if I can get in here a little more. So we had $50,000 of construction holdback, but we only received 48.8 because they hit us, for $1,200 in fees. So buying, here's our points and our closing costs, our insurance, right? So our insurance up front. And, we had to have flood insurance, right? Newport Richey, AE, flood zone had to have flood insurance. But we have if you need one, we have a fantastic insurance provider for builder's risk pretty much only, because obviously there's no contents in the house, but it insures you on the structure, right? And so the good thing about our insurance person, her name's Melissa. If you ever need her information, let me know. But the great thing about this product is that when you close early, it's a year policy that you pay up front, but when you close early, you get reimbursed. Now it is a 25% minimum. So if you do close like that, you're getting charged for 3 months regardless. Even if you close in 2 months, it's a 3-month minimum. But like we close in 6 months. So I just actually talked to them yesterday or 2 days ago, and they're retroactively going back to the 20th of when we closed, which was, a couple weeks ago. And so I'll get a rebate for about 6 months of this money here, which is fantastic. Labor, every time I cut a check for labor, granite, etc., we log everything, all of our materials, right? So Home Depot, our granite, the roof, etc., everything, payment method, Amex. The great thing about this renovation was a lot of it was bought off Amex. And our Marriott points went through the roof, which was fantastic. We're actually going to Hawaii in May, using a lot of these points. All the wire fees I got hit, all the mortgage, right? So it's 10.25% interest only. So every time I had a payment come out, it was automatically deducted out of the business account. So logged all that, all of our utilities, and it calculates everything up here. All the utilities, this property didn't have gas, just water, electric. So every time I got hit with that, in fact, I might have a bill or 2 more since we just closed. I got to check on that. Our HOA dues, right? So everything that I got charged in this deal, I logged. And if you don't have time to do that, you got to find somebody to do it for you. I know my close friend and business partner, Carlos, his wife, Adriana, if you're watching, shout out to you. She logs all this stuff for him. And if you don't, you have no idea where you're at in the renovation. You have to track everything, or you're going to be lost. I promise you. All right, so that is tracking everything. If you want a template, if you're on my team, let me know. I'll get it to you. And then final renovation numbers. So let's dive into this. So our final renovation numbers, our labor and materials, I included my wire fees there too, but our final renovation numbers was $57,671. So we went $7,000 over budget. Boo to that. And it is what it is. At some point, you have to be able to finish the renovation. And I didn't include any of the mortgage, any of the holding costs into that. It's just labor and materials. I guess you could probably take out the wire fees. So about $7,600, we went over budget. So market time. So we're done. We have it cleaned. We got photos done, dropped a post in the ground, got it listed. And so the showings for the first 45 days were absolutely horrendous. I got one showing, and we listed, October, which is a terrible time to list, right? You have November, you have holidays coming up, but 45 days we listed at 319. Remember, my ARV in my appraisal was 320. I thought it was still good. We listed at 319, October 17th, 45 days, 0. I think I might have had one showing. Now, we did have open houses, and we did have traction at open houses. And maybe it's because people don't really have, don't want to hire the buyer's agent or sign the document with the buyer's agent now. But we did have action at open houses. And it's actually interesting. This property sold from an open house, holding an open house. So everybody talking about how, open house, they don't sell from open houses. There's a small chance, I think it's, 2% or less that it will sell from the open house. And this one did, which was fantastic. So on October November 12th, we dropped it to 299, and then I canceled it. We were coming up to Christmas. We were having 0 showings. It was becoming stale in the market. I canceled it, right? I just wanted it off the market between Christmas and New Year's and relist back in January. In fact, I was going to not relist until February. I was going to give it 60 days. With our MLS, you have to let it be off the market for 60 days to reset the cumulative days on market. Now, if you cancel a listing and then just relist it with a different listing number, your active days on market will, reset to 0, but your cumulative days will show. And so my initial plan was to let it sit off for 60 days, just, give it a break. But as my wife and I were talking about it with some business associates, we're just like, hey, let's just put it back on. So January 14th, we relisted at 299. On January 28th, maybe, we had a bidding war, which was shocking. We ran an open house. Here's a little tip. When we ran the open house, I created a Facebook event for that open house. And then I boosted that event to like a 40-mile radius around the property for about a week. And we were getting traction on that event from people that we didn't know, lots of likes, questions about it. And so we generated a lot of interest and exposure to that open house. And so open house happened. One of our associates, held it for us, and a buyer walked through that wanted it. She had a condo right around the corner, looking for a house and looking to rent out her condo, I believe, to her sister. And she's from New York, but she was looking for a house to be more permanent down here. She walked in. At the same time, we had a showing from a different agent that his client wanted it. And bidding war happened. I'm not going to get into all the details, but one was willing to put 50% down, go way over, list price, waiving appraisals. Like, it felt like 2021 again, which was insane. But they both wanted it. And at some point, I just had to say, enough is enough. Just give me your highest and best. I'm not, we're not going back and forth. The ethical part is like, hey, just highest and best. Whoever comes in with the best offer is going to win. Like, I couldn't do it anymore. Also, you start worrying about appraisal, right? We're worrying about the appraised value. And so bidding war happened. We go under contract. Obviously, your normal stuff, inspection. This buyer actually only had a 4-point inspection done. She looked at the house. It's pristine. It's all pretty much brand new. Only did a 4-point, which was, great for me. Passed all the 4-point. The appraisal came in. We met the appraiser, gave him the scope of work, showed him everything that was done, and it appraised, which I was a little nervous about because it had sat. When I listed at 320, it sat for so long with no showings. We got down to 299, and now we go under contract at 315. I was worried about it appraising because it had sat for so long at 299. And as an appraiser, you're looking at that going, well, nobody wanted it for a real long time. And now a bidding war happened and it shot over, is that really true market value? And so I was worried about it. Appraisal came in right at value, which was, praise God. And so we closed within 3 weeks. Guaranteed rate was the lender. Kudos to them. Sometimes, those bigger lenders have problems, but guaranteed rate nailed it in 3 weeks. Closed on time. Also, shout out to Closed Title. Closed Title was our, Walter Davini. They were our preferred title on this. And I had a guy there that I'd never worked with. His name's Chris. Did a fantastic job. And so inspection, appraisal, and then closing. So let's talk about final numbers. How did we do? So here is our settlement statement. I don't want to show names. So 315 was the purchase price, $3,000 EMD. We don't really need to go through all her numbers. I didn't really have a whole lot of closing costs on my side. Gave her a $500 home warranty, and our cash due to seller was a 111, 124. Now I start plugging in numbers, right? So in here, our cash to close, our contract price is 315, our selling commissions, our cleaning, our photos, our posts. I literally track everything. You have to track everything. Our cash to close less our cash out equals our net profit of 49,000. So and there's more to this actually. So as of right now, we've hit about an 80% ROI on our money in 6 months, which is absolutely fantastic. This was a home run. I was worried for a while there. But the other thing that actually happened was when we got the payoff, this is something to pay attention to too if you do this. When we got the payoff from the lender, I knew it was 191, 525, right? Interest, this and that. But they put in here that I had an uncleared payment. So my payment came out on February 10th. We closed on February 20th. So within 10 days, it still hadn't cleared in their system. So I knew that was coming back to me because it's going to be an overage, right? But they also had an unpaid balance of force-placed insurance. So for whatever reason, they never got our insurance. And maybe it was my fault. I don't know whose fault it was. They never asked for it or whatever. And they just put a force-placed insurance of almost $3,000. And so I had to fight with them before closing, going back and forth saying, nope, I have insurance. I provided all the insurance to them, all the documents, all the declarations. And so back and forth took like 2 weeks. And they finally said, okay, we'll credit it. And, but couldn't get it done before closing. So when we wired in the, what was it? 190. When we wired in the 198, it was about $3,000 over of what my technical payoff is. So eventually I'm going to get that back, which is fantastic. I'm going to get that back, about $3,000, and I'll get, 6 months of the insurance premium back. And so that number, when I get those checks, which hopefully, it's in the next few weeks, I'm going to come back here and recalculate this. So ultimately we got about over 80% ROI on our money, which was absolutely fantastic. This was a good one, but I was worried for a little while there. Any questions on any of that? If you are interested in hard money, we used ALH lending. So Carlos at alhlending.com, or even Fabian at alhlending.com, either one of those. That's who we used for the loan. Renovation, obviously our construction crews are near and dear to our own hearts, so we don't hand out that information. And what else can I provide here? Guaranteed rate was the lender. Closed title was the title company, and we used Google PPC to get the lead. So that's about it. This one was a home run. Super happy with it. Looking for our next one. If you have a deal, I'm looking for one just like this one. If you have a deal that is a smaller property, or maybe you're looking to partner with somebody, with something, let me know. We are actively looking to acquire another one. I think it's a great time to buy. I don't really want to be listing again towards the end of the year. That was a little stressful. But if you have a deal, please let me know. And I guess that's about it. Signing off. Again, my name is James Roy with InvestCore Realty. I'm the broker, I'm the owner, and an investor. And what we do at InvestCore Realty is we teach agents how to work with investors and how to invest themselves. And so we're a little bit different than your typical brokerage, a little bit more of a hybrid model. Teaching agents how to really, essentially become their own customer. If I can teach you how to become your own customer, you don't ever have to worry about where your next check's coming from, because you can create, you can generate closings. And so that's what we teach. And I'll give a quick plug. We are starting a training with STAR, Suncoast Tampa Association of Realtors. It starts April 14th or April 12th. And we are doing an 8-month series on how to essentially work with investors and become one yourself as a realtor from a realtor's perspective. And so super excited for that. It's going to be like every month. I think it's the second or third Tuesday of every month. And we'll start putting, thank you. Appreciate it. No problem. But we're going to do an awesome job teaching our 25,000 realtors how to invest, how to work with investors, and essentially how to create and generate closings at will. Like, if you can understand this investment game as a realtor, you can go out there and generate and create transactions that didn't previously exist. I'll give you an example. I have an agent. She's fantastic. We just had a conversation yesterday, and she brought a deal to me that I essentially told her, well, I think you can make about 30 grand on this deal. And she was blown away, and she has no idea. And unfortunately, our association and our brokers don't really teach the investment side. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. So if you're looking for a new home, that's what we do. Hope you guys have a great day. Happy Wednesday, and get after it.